Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I am Attorney Augustus Corbett. I'm one half of the Defiant Lawyers. Each and every week, we bring you at least one legal analysis of some story trending regarding politics, policies, personalities, or pop culture to empower you with the information you need to defy an unjust legal system. Listen, and to nullify systemic racism. Listen, if that interests you, and I really, really hope that it does, because there's a whole lot of systemic racism going on in our nation, a lot of white supremacy, a lot of things going on to turn back the hands of time. It's an old song I grew up hearing all the time, to turn back the hands of time. There are people who are committed to, in their words, in their deceptive words, make America great again. But the question is, when was America ever great for us? Right? So anyway, if that interests you, and I hope it does, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and click the bell so you'll get notified whenever we upload one of these videos. All right, so thank you for joining me today. And I really, 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 really want to, first and foremost, let me say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. 20,000 subscribers. 20,000 subscribers. So, again, thank you. And let me shout some of you out. You have joined us. I really appreciate it. Rick, some of these I can't see. Rick, pardon me, that's Vic. Hello, Vic. Thank you for tuning in. Stuart, thank you for tuning in, sir. Cut Flower, greetings from Georgia. Thank you for tuning in. Barbara Blake, hello from New York. New York. You know what? I was born in New York. I was actually born in Westchester County, New York, and I was raised down south. But I was actually born in the state of New York. And as you all know who are from New York, you know Westchester County is just outside the city. And in fact, my siblings, my biological siblings, all grew up between Brooklyn and Queens and so forth. So New York, we welcome you in the house. We welcome you in the house. Thank you for stopping in. C. Walker, thank you. Or is that G. Walker? I'm sorry. Listen, this is a little bit away from me, so I may not get your names correctly, but charge it to the head, not the heart. Only Science. Hello, Only Science. Thank you for dropping in. Nina, thank you. Thank you, Miss Nina. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, yay, and congrats on the 20,000 subscribers. Yes, yes, celebrate with me. Come on. Please celebrate with me. Do I have some clapping that I can put on here? Yeah, I think that's what that is. Maybe not. No, sorry. Here it is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you all. Okay. All right. So, yes, thank you all very much. Yes, Bush Kid. Hey, Bush Kid, thank you for tuning in. Cut Flower. Barbara Blake, thank you. James Mitchell, hello from Pennsylvania. Hello, hello. I got family in Pennsylvania as well. I got a niece and some nephews and so on in the Philadelphia area. Thank you for tuning in. Mike, hello, Mike. Hello. Thank you. He says, love your channel. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Greetings from Virginia. Sharon, hello from Detroit, Michigan. Glad to have you. Thank you. Thank you. Marvin Bell, Milwaukee in the house, Milwaukee in the house, Milwaukee in the house. The Milwaukee Bucks. What about that? Great basketball team. Hello. Yes. All right, who else we got here? Think Black Live. Yeah, I like that. Cut Flower. Yes. Yes. Okay, so thank you all. Oh, wait. I see somebody here from my home state. Hello from Smithfield, North Carolina. Most people don't know where Smithfield, North Carolina is, but it's right sort of outside of Raleigh in the sort of the southeast part of the state, and glad to see a home. I can't tell if it's male or female, but glad to see a home person joining us tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. So, wait a minute. I think I just got a super chat, a 5-piece. Yes, I got a 5-piece. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mitchell. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Back in the day, we used to call that a fever in the funk house. A fever in the funk house. So thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Derek D. Smith, Chicago, Chi-Town. I was in Chi-Town not too long ago. Loved it. One of the best trips I had. My son and I went and spent a few days in Chi-Town, and it was just awesome. Went to see Reverend Jesse Jackson at the Push Rainbow building there. Reverend Jackson and I went to the same college, North Carolina A&T State University. I actually went to school with his sons, both Jonathan and Jesse Jr. So I know that family. And so, yeah, I love Chi-Town, love Chi-Town. Blessings, Attorney Corbett. Yes, thank you. Thank you to all of you, all of you, all of you, all of you. Love you all. Appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in tonight. So, as you see, I'm very, very grateful to all of you. And by the way, before I forget it, my wife will get all over me if I don't do this. Let me right now, just a shameless plug. Please go buy my book, Education and Justice, How Public Schools Fail African American Males. Go get a copy right there on Amazon, Education and Justice. And let me say to you who have bought the book, the sales of the book have just skyrocketed. Thank you all. Thank you all. And what's really important to me about that is this information is critical for our young men. I was once a school teacher. I was a public high school teacher. And it was while I taught school that I got the inspiration to write this book, because I saw the way the school system was treating young black men. And I know how I had been treated as a young black man. And so, I felt inspired to write that book. And I spent 2 years researching it. So it's not just a lot of my opinions and takes on things. No. I went into the Duke University Law Library. I was finishing like my last couple of years of law school. And I went into their library and researched and just showed you in this book how and why a lot of young black men do not do well in public schools. By the way, I dropped out in the 10th grade. I never completed high school. I got a GED. And with my GED, I was then able to go to college, to the best college in the world, North Carolina Agriculture and Technical State University. If there are any Aggies in the house, please let me know, because you all know what we say, you Aggies. We're Aggie born, Aggie bred, and when we die, we'll be Aggie dead. Yes, so The book is really good. Thank you for everyone who has purchased a copy of the book. All right, so what I'm wanting to do at this juncture is to kind of introduce myself to some of you, all right? Just a little quick interview, several facts about me. Who am I? So my name is Augustus Corbett, all right? You know what? Let me share a little secret with you all. I am in the process of changing my name. I have had Augustus Corbett. I'm named after my biological father, Augustus Young, but I'm about to change my name because I refuse to die with the slave master's name. I refuse to die with the slave master's name. My family were brought over here in chains, and they were not a Corbett. I don't know what they were. I did my background search, but I couldn't get all the way back there. But they didn't come here as a Corbett. I will not die as a Corbett. Okay? So I'm about to change my name, my wife and I, both of us. And so that should happen in the next several months. It's a big step, so I got to do it very, thoughtfully, very thoughtfully. But anyway, I am Augustus Corbett. I am both a minister and an attorney. I'm both. I do both. And the minister part comes first. I am first a minister, and then I am a lawyer. And that's what I always wanted to do growing up, because I knew that I could really do some damage to white supremacy. I grew up in a really small town in North Carolina, and it was all Confederate. I remember segregation. I remember Jim Crow. I remember going to the colored side of the doctor's office and having to go to the back of the restaurant in my hometown. So it was all Confederate. And I vowed in my heart that I would fight against this. And so being a minister and an attorney has really served me well. And I'll get into that in some future videos, but it has really enabled me to have the passion, the compassion, the empathy, the sympathy, to fight for our people, and as an attorney, to have the knowledge of the law, because a lot of things that happen to us is the result of the law, Slavery was legal. Jim Crow was legal. You follow me? So having an understanding of constitutional law, for example, tremendously helps me fight this good fight, the fight for justice. And again, having the ministry background and the biblical background is just a perfect merge. All right, so now I won't preach a sermon, but it's a great merge. My daughter and I practice criminal defense, family law, personal injury, and civil rights law. And we're getting, by the way, you all are blowing our phones up. Our phones, we can't keep up with the calls. They are coming in. People all over the country are having all types of civil rights issues, are being mistreated, and so on. And my heart goes out to everyone who calls looking for help. We can't help everybody because oftentimes it's not the civil rights law that we practice is police brutality, excessive force cases. We sue police officers in federal court who use excessive force against primarily African Americans, but we also represent whites. There, believe it or not, there are some whites who also get mistreated by the police, and Hispanics. So yeah, we do civil rights law. The calls are coming in so much so we can't handle all of them. In many of the cases we can't take because, again, we practice police brutality and banking while black. And oftentimes we can't go outside the state of Texas. So if you all call and speak with us and we say we can't help you, it's not because we don't want to help you. We want to help you. This is what we're about. This is what we do every day. Okay? We want to help. But sometimes we are not in a position to help because we're not licensed in your jurisdiction, so forth and so on. All right? Let's go back. I'm also an author and an activist. You saw the book that I wrote on this topic. I got several more that are coming out this year. And I'm an activist. I'm in the streets. I'm in the streets protesting. I'm out there. I'm not just talking. I am out there in the streets protesting with the young people. That's right, protesting with the young people. When, for example, Botham Jean was killed here by a police officer, I was out there in the streets, protesting. George Floyd, I wasn't in that. I didn't go out protesting then because of COVID, but we represented a lot of the young people who went out and protested the George Floyd murder. The lynching is what I called it, and got all their cases dismissed. Young people, bunch of young people. And so we're activists. Chloe and I both. We represented, quite a few people who are into protesting and so forth. All right, trying to give you a little bit about who I am. As a Southerner, I've been fighting white supremacy all my life. As I said earlier, I am a political independent, and it is important that you understand this. I am not a Democrat. I do not I'm not a partisan. I am not a Republican. I am neither of those. I am not a Republican. I am not a Democrat. I am a political independent with a strong aversion to white supremacy and systemic racism. So I nearly vote with the Democrats, especially here lately, all the time. Now, both of these parties can really tee me off, right? Both of these parties can really tee me and you off. I see it in your comments. So I get it. I understand. I'm not a partisan either. But I'm going to show you in just a moment why I think every single one of us should be supporting Joe Biden. I'm going to show you why in just a moment. I am also a Pan-Africanist and a critical race theorist. And I'm throwing these things in here because I want you to know who I am. And some of you may even decide that he's not for me. He's not for me. Because some of you, without even really knowing what critical race theory means, you have drunk the Kool-Aid of conservatives who demonize, who co-opted and demonize what critical race theory is. And you really most of you never heard of the term until a couple of years ago when they started completely misdefining what it means. I learned about critical race theory when I was in law school back in 2000, almost 25 years ago. So critical race theory is not some new concept to divide the nation or that is racist toward white people. I've heard all kinds of stuff coming from black folks because you know what? Some of us I'm going to get into all of that. All right. So Pan-Africanist, which means I am a huge supporter of the continent of Africa. I believe that Black Americans will not really have true, will not be able to thrive like we should until sub-Saharan Africa is completely free of all this colonialism, this neo-colonialism. All right? So, yes, I'm a very strong Pan-Africanist and have been so for 40 years. I was a part in college, I was a part of an organization called the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. It was founded by Stokely Carmichael. Some of you all will know him by that name, Stokely Carmichael. He changed his name to Kwame Ture after Kwame Nkrumah, the president of Ghana, the first African country to gain its independence, and Sekou Touré. He took the first name of Kwame Nkrumah and the last name of Sekou Touré. But over here, before he moved to Africa and so forth, he was known as Stokely Carmichael. I was a part of his organization when I was 19, 20 years old in college. All right, so that's a little bit about me. There's so much more, right? But that's a little bit about who I am. Now, the mission of our channel, what do we do? Why am I on YouTube? Trust you me when I tell you, I am the busiest person in the world, it feels at times. So I could really be doing so many things to, in court, with my ministry, but I see the opportunity to do what I enjoy doing the most, educating people. And in this case, educating people about white supremacy and all the suffering that we as African Americans have experienced over the last 400 years and what we can do about it. So the mission of our channel is to provide you the necessary information to do two things: defy an unjust legal system, and don't let anyone tell you our legal system is fair and equitable toward us, African Americans. It's not. Oftentimes, I'm in courtrooms, and everybody on one side of the little gate that's in most courtrooms, everybody over there, the judge, the prosecutor, the bailiff, the probation officer, the clerk, the court coordinator or court administrator are all white or Asian. And everybody back on this side are all black and brown. So no. The legal system is unjust on its face, and we fight it. We fight it every day. We fight it every day. And also, to give you the information you need to nullify systemic racism. Now, we know white conservatives and black conservatives are out here saying there is no systemic racism. America is not a racist country. I've already done videos on that. Go watch those videos where I address that. Now, let me respond to some of the comments and some of the questions about the very last video that I did regarding the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I want to respond to a few things because some of you either didn't watch the video or some of it you didn't understand. I want to respond. Now, here's some of the comments. I don't have the names of the people. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone or anything of that nature. But the comments are just great for me to, let's say, clarify or expound on some things here. So this commenter says, we don't need to stop it. I presume he's saying we don't need to stop the killing, the gutting of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Why do you want to be around them? When he says them, I'm thinking he means whites, white establishments. And by the way, we intentionally named that video the way we did. We thought about what to name that video for a couple of hours. And initially, I wanted to name it Exposing the Plot to Gut or Kill the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We debated that and debated that and debated that and said, you know what? Let's not name it that, because most likely most blacks will see that and keep it moving and be like, what's the Civil Rights Act? What they got to do with me? Why is that important? And not even click it, not even check out the video. And let me say this about my videos, you all. I think you see this. I spend days preparing for these videos. Days. That video took me 3-4 days to prepare for it, to pull the information together. Because I'm not going to just run my mouth. I'm an attorney. I'm a lawyer. I'm trained to give you facts, evidence, receipts. So I'm always going to do that. You can count on that. Okay? So why do you want to spend your money with them? Why do you want to live amongst them? Why? With, 3 question marks. We need to fix us alone and not be subjected to their way of life. So let me go back to the first part of that. We don't need to stop it. Yes, we do need to stop it for all the reasons I gave in the prior video. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, that piece of legislation was, first of all, obtained by the blood, the sweat, the tears, even the death of precious people who were living during a Jim Crow period, who were treated like nothing, who could not think. In fact, my wife and I were looking at the history of Motown. And the Supremes, the Temptations, other groups talked about how when they would go from Detroit to down south, they had to go the chicken circuit. They had to ride their bus. And they could not go to white-owned hotels and white-owned restaurants. And there were not enough black ones. It seems like folks just forget that. There were not enough black ones to sustain them. So they said that they would travel on some of their road trips. I couldn't believe it. They said that they would travel for 3 months and stay in a hotel only twice out of 3 months because there were not hotels that could accommodate them. There were not enough black ones, and the white ones wouldn't let them. Nor could they use the bathrooms because they couldn't go in them. So just imagine. And okay, let me say this. And the only reason why now white establishments must allow us to sleep in their hotels, visit their restaurants, and other white establishments is because of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That's the only reason. And so while I agree with those of you who said, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I have been fighting white supremacy. I completely agree that we need our own economic base. Yes, when we go into here in my area here in South Dallas, there's an area there right in the middle. It's Malcolm X Boulevard, right? And they always got a Malcolm X and a Martin Luther King Boulevard in our communities. And there's that Malcolm X Boulevard used to be littered with black businesses. One of my clients owns a barbershop there. And she tells me, she's an elderly lady. So, I mean, she must be up there, right? Because I ain't no spring chicken anymore. But she's much older than me. And she tells me about all the black businesses that used to be up and down that street. It wasn't Malcolm X back then, but up and down that street. And they all closed. And now what's happening? Whites, Arabs, Latinos, everybody else has moved in that community and has bought up all those buildings and all that land. Dirt cheap oftentimes. I understand that. And I know we need our own businesses so we can recirculate our dollars. Come on, folks. I'm an attorney. I'm an educated man. I've been around the block. Of course I know that. But I also know the facts. And the facts are, unfortunately, we don't have enough right now to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves. We don't have enough black businesses. Let's get busy. Let's get busy creating them and so on. Of course, we got to fight white supremacy to do that because trying to get the funding. I did a video a couple of months ago about Navy Federal denying black folks, allegedly, loans for businesses and so forth. That's the reason why we don't have, oftentimes, those businesses. And the ones that we did have, they destroyed them or took them from us. I'm from the South. I can remember growing up, black people were farmers. And I also remember the United States Department of Agriculture aided white people in my community in taking black farmland. So we look, out of all the money, the gross domestic product, the wealth of America, black folks only own about 2.5% of America's wealth. After 400 years, I did a series of videos on my channel. Go watch those videos. I addressed that. And by the way, because we are so far behind these folks economically, I am a very big proponent of reparations. I believe reparations is the only way for us to get the shot in the arm economically to ever close the gap. Economists basically tell us that whites are so far ahead of us economically. The average wealth, medium wealth, the medium wealth of an average white family is about 10 to 15 times greater than the average black family. That's not because, if you listen to conservatives, that's because of black culture, and that's because we're lazy, and that's because we're criminals and thugs and so forth. All you got to do is do the research, and the research will show you that the overwhelming majority of black people are hardworking, law-abiding citizens. But the media is always promoting that 1%, 2%, 3%, 4% of our community that's cutting up and misbehaving. So the wealth gap is so large that reparations is really the only way to close it, because they just got things so tangled up and are trying to, again, gut what laws we do have on the books. Back to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Dr. King led the movement and others to get us a civil rights bill, folks, so that they would be able to go to the white restaurants. They were about the only ones to have them, and the hospitals and so on. And just fundamentally, we ought to be able to go wherever we want to go. No one should be able to put up a no black served here sign in this country. We helped build this country. If you don't want to go to the white establishment, don't. And by the way, for this guy, let me go back, who put, why do you want to be around them? Why do you want to spend your money with them? I don't. And I don't live around them. I don't know if he knows who he's talking to here. But let's be realistic. We're just not there where we can not need the Civil Rights Act of 64. Now, in the meantime, let's be doing everything we can to knock doors down, like the Small Business Administration, stop them from denying us loans, and banks like Federal, Navy Federal, and let's do what we got to do to start creating more black businesses and, more establishments so that, yes, we can circulate our money in our community. But until then, and not only does the Civil Rights Act deal with white establishments, come close. Let me tell you this. It also employment discrimination. So this ain't just about going to Chili's. This isn't just about, I don't know, apparently folks did not look at the video. I discussed all this. This is not just about Chili's and Chipotle and Cheesecake Factory and Howard Johnson Hotel and all that. It's not just about that. It's also about your work. Without the Civil Rights Act of 1964, your employer could fire you tomorrow with no cause, for no reason. And say to you, I'm doing it because you're black. You couldn't use the 14th Amendment because the 14th Amendment only applies to states. So Congress had to come up with another way to enact the Civil Rights Act, and they used the Interstate Commerce Clause. I went over all of this because white conservatives were fighting it all the way, tooth and nail. Now, somebody out there could be saying, well, the people who fought it were Democrats. And that would be partially true. It was Democrats who enslaved black folks. It was the Republican Party that were the abolitionists who fought to end slavery. But something happened in the 50s, the 30s, and the 40s, and the 50s, and the 60s. The parties switched up. The Dixiecrats thought that the Democrat Party was cozying up too much to blacks. And they followed Barry Goldwater and Jesse Helms, senator from my home state, Strom Thurmond from South Carolina, followed those guys into the Republican Party. And the progressive people in the Republican Party bolted the blacks and went into the Democrat Party. So, yeah, the people who were fighting the Civil Rights Act, some of them were Democrats. But they left the Democrat Party. That was one of the fears of Lyndon Johnson. He knew that once he signed that bill into law and the Voting Rights Act, which they've already gutted, Lyndon Johnson knew he would lose the South. He knew it. He knew that would be the end of white Southern support. They left the Democrat Party, went into the Republican Party. Okay? Let's get real about this stuff, please. All right, another comment. So, commenter, let me go back. I'm not at all saying I feel some sort of way about being around, living around white people. Give me a break. There's a part of the Dallas area up north is predominantly white up there. I told my wife, we're not going up there. I got to be down here where the black folks are. Okay? So that is not at all the issue. But let me point out something else. When Dr. King, and I got to defend him because several of you said some pretty awful things about Dr. King. I got to defend that man, who I believe was the greatest American ever. Dr. King gave his life for us. Keep your mouth off Dr. King. That's how I feel about that. In my mind, he and his family are royalty. Dr. King didn't have any sort of thing, fever, jungle fever to be around whites. What he knew, what those men knew was, for example, education. Where was the money going to be? The money for education was going to be with the white kids. Separate but equal under Plessy v. Ferguson, that was a farce. Black schools were not equal. They were separate, but they were not equal. Thurgood Marshall, who led the fight against segregation of public schools and eventually got the Brown versus Board of Education case, he documented that those schools were not equal. And used a social scientist to prove that integration is inherently evil. And with the Dahl test, you all have seen the Dahl test, showed that black kids, our kids, begin to suffer trauma when they are treated like they're other, like they're different, like they're bad. Psychologically, it damaged our kids. So it's about the money. The money gonna follow the whites. So it wasn't just about sitting shoulder to shoulder with white kids. It was about the white kids were gonna have the better facilities. I remember integration. I was going to an all-black school, and then when integration hit, for me, that was in about 72, 71. I was 10, 11 years old, 8 or 9, somewhere along there. They started busing us over to the white school. And it was like night and day. It was like night and day. Their facilities, their books, it was like night and day. The food they ate, their cafeteria, it was like night and day. That's what it was about. Not about just wanting to sit beside white people. There are some blacks like that. But that's not what this fight is about. That's quite frankly, who want to be around whites. That's more of those black conservatives, right? It's more them. It's not somebody like me who's out here fighting white supremacy. The Civil Rights Act protects blacks against discrimination in public accommodations and employment discrimination. Another comment. While I do agree that African Americans should fight to ensure that the provisions of the 1964 Civil Rights bill should be act are not abrogated, I am not sure that African Americans should be fighting for the right to have access to Caucasian establishments. I would say that I just addressed that point. And I understand what this gentleman is saying, but I think I just addressed that. Why we must fight for the Civil Rights Act, and for now, until we get where we need to be economically. Right now, 2.5% of the nation's wealth. That means we don't own a lot of businesses. As a matter of fact, just do your research. As a matter of fact, you could take all the wealth of the wealthiest black people in this country, all of them, Oprah, Jay-Z, Robert Smith, all of them, and it wouldn't equal the wealth of one white man, Elon Musk. So we're not where we need to be to say, you know what, we don't need to be them. I mean, how would we clothe ourselves? I mean, how would we do it? I mean, there are a few black companies that may make a few things, but there's no black, to my knowledge, clothing company that could supply the black community overnight. The Civil Rights Act of '64 could be gone very fast. I can't think of a black-owned grocery store that could. Come on, let's be practical. Let's fight to protect the Civil Rights Act while at the same time doing everything we can to get the bag. Start building our businesses, yes, and keeping our money in our community, absolutely. So I won't spend time on that. He says, I'm fine with this commenter. In other words, he's saying he's fine with them gutting the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Can you see why that is nonsensical? Can you see why that sentence by itself is nonsensical? I never understood why MLK would integrate us into a social that enslaved our ancestors or had dreams of us holding hands with people who hung us from trees, but better late than never. As I just told you, it's not that anyone just wanted to be just around white people. It's that white people control the wealth. And if we built this country, and we did, I did a video not long ago that we didn't just contribute to the country. We built this doggone thing. My great-great-grandfather, Thomas Williams, was an enslaved man. I know where he was. I know where the plantation is that he was enslaved, him and my great-great-grandmother, Emily Williams. We built this country. As a matter of fact, the reason why we don't have the wealth we should is because most of the work that we have done from the 1600s until about the 1960s, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, most of all that money that we've made went to white people. All of our hard work. Oftentimes we were getting $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8, $10 an hour, and they were making the real money. We have been enriching whites for literally centuries. Literally centuries. And so because we built this country, we're entitled to some of this wealth. So Dr. King was not kicking down the walls of segregation to expose us to danger. As a matter of fact, the walls that he kicked down and others with him is the reason why we, in 2008, was able to elect the first black president. Those were the walls that he was trying to kick down. Those were the walls our ancestors wanted down. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is needed. It is needed to give teeth to the 14th Amendment. The Equal Protection Clause would mean nothing without the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Those constitutional amendments are very important, but they are not enforceable. And each of those amendments gave Congress the authority to enact laws to enforce the provisions of the amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. So, like I said, keep your mouth off Dr. King. What he did was right. Doors were open, and some of us right now are benefiting and prospering because those doors were open. Some of you are on jobs you would never have. You live in places you would never live because of the doors they kicked down. Now, we're not going to stand by our generation and let them erect those doors again, are we? Is that what we're going to do? Is that so our appreciation to King and Fannie Lou Hamer and others is to just sit back and do nothing and allow these conservatives to just gut precious laws? They've already done that with the Voting Rights Act. That's proof. In 2013, a case called Shelby County versus Holder. Shelby County in Tennessee sued Eric Holder over the Voting Rights Act. And a conservative Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. Why? Why? Because the Voting Rights Act had been getting reauthorized every so often. It was never an issue. And then all of a sudden, there's an issue with the Voting Rights Act. What happened? Barack Obama happened. That scared our white counterparts. So they said, we got to dial this voting rights thing down. Anything you see white conservatives trying to destroy is good for us. Anything you see white conservatives concerned about, that's a really good key that is good for black people. When they attack critical race theory, that should have told you all, there must be something good about this. This is good. Anytime you got white supremacists and the KKK and the Nazis and the whole Trump crowd going after something, it must be pretty good. Oh, okay. My time is running out. My time is running out. And okay. All right. So I'm gonna let that do it. I'm gonna let that do it with my comments because I want to get to this place right here. Biden versus Trump. Now, let me say this right off the bat. I told you I am not a Democrat. I told you I am not a Republican. Okay? Somebody suggested in some of the comments, he must be getting paid. Ain't nobody paying me a dime. I don't know Democrat officials. I'm not at the meetings. I'm not all that. I'm not a political person like that. I just know the threat. When I look at these two people, which one poses the greatest threat to my community? That for me. And so let me go back. I want to show you one more question that somebody did ask or statement. The very top comment. Well, all this to say vote for Biden. To all blacks, none of them are for blacks. Don't vote for neither one. Man. Wow. So I spent 3 days preparing this on how we need to protect the Civil Rights Act, all to get to the very last thing in my video, which is vote for Biden. So I had to play all those games, say all that stuff, just to say vote for Biden. That's nonsensical. That's nonsensical. And the second part of that statement is nonsensical as well. And sir, if you're listening to me, I'm just being blunt. It doesn't make any sense. Okay? Doesn't make any sense. If I wanted to say vote for Biden, I would have said that up front. I say what I think. I don't mince my words. Isn't that clear? Do you understand the considerable risk I'm taking by doing these videos? I'm not afraid to say what I think. If that was what I was thinking, I would have said that. And I'm definitely not getting paid. I don't want anybody to, there's no way that I would allow the Democrat Party to pay me to go out here and tell people to vote for Biden. No, thank you. I have as bigger issues with the Democrats as I do with the Republicans. But when I think about who is the biggest threat to Black America, it is Trump. Now, somebody said something in the comments that, man, I cannot agree with more. The propaganda, the misinformation, the disinformation that's being released in the Black community is just amazing. It is amazing that all the stuff, sometimes some of the comments, I don't know if they're bots. I mean, they are putting out clever little stuff to convince people that Biden and Trump are the equivalent of each other. So let's look at it. Let's look at it. I don't buy that. Why I favor Biden in this election? First of all, I hear all the time, the crime bill, the crime bill, the crime bill, the crime bill. The crime bill is no reason to vote against Biden or not vote. Let me give you why I say that. First of all, Black folks supported the crime bill. The Congressional Black Caucus supported the 1994 crime bill. Some of you may not even be old enough to know this. Most of you probably are, but Black folks supported the crime bill. Why? Because crack was decimating the Black community and action was needed. It was decimating, destroying the Black community. I remember it very well. And you know why? Let me tell you why I remember it so well. I have to hold back the tears here. Because in 1987, My baby brother was killed in the streets in the heyday of the crack cocaine epidemic. Six years later, another baby brother of mine was killed. 1993, January. I remember the phone call. I remember both phone calls. They are forever etched in my mind. I preached their funerals. I preached my 15-year-old brother's funeral. I preached my 20-year-old brother's funeral, who both were killed in the streets in the height of the crack epidemic. Something had to be done. Something had to be done. Was it a perfect law? Absolutely not. The 3 strikes provision, the sentencing disparity, I know about all of that because I'm an attorney. I know the imperfections and what arose from the 1994 crime bill. It was not perfect, but Biden doesn't bear the blame alone. He was the face of it. He sponsored it, but he had the support of many black politicians because they represented districts that were being decimated by crack cocaine. When my little brother got killed in New York City, the coroner told us that they were seeing at that time about 10 young black men a day. 10 young black men a day dying in just that area alone, not around the country, he told us that. In his district, they were doing autopsies and doing the medical examiner's work on about 10 per day on average. Young black men. It was horrible. It was horrible. Something had to be done, and blacks supported it. That's what I'm saying there, tens of thousands of young black men. So, and another thing about the crime bill, it was federal law. It was federal law, which means that it impacted the federal cases. Most of the black men who went to jail for during the mass incarceration, when the jail population just exploded, most of those were convicted and jailed under state law. There are like 2.345 million people in jail in this country. Maybe 200,000 of them, 300,000 of them are in federal prison. Most are in state prison. So why favor Biden? Number one, don't hold the crime bill against him. Number two, Biden faithful service to the first black president for 8 years. That means something to me. It's oftentimes hard for a white person to submit to a black superior. Joe Biden did that for 8 years to the very first black president. And I'm sure Obama would not, I'm sure he did his due diligence not to nominate a white supremacist. I just would think, I'm just thinking, a young black man like Obama and his firebrand, beautiful First Lady, Michelle Obama, would not have nominated a white supremacist to be by their side. I just can't see it. Yet you got blacks out here calling Biden a white supremacist. Where's the fact? Where are the facts? Where are the facts? Where are the facts? Where are the facts? Give me the facts. Nothing but facts. Not some propaganda, misinformation mess. No, for some of us that doesn't work. Give me the facts. Let's discuss the facts. Biden's historic nominations while president. First black female vice president. That means something, folks. That means something. That means something. Well, he did it to get black votes. Well, sure, he's a politician. Yeah, of course, that's some of it. But he didn't have to do that. That's big. I know we don't give her the credit we should give her. And that's not me, that's you all. It's not me. I honor Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris. I honor that African-American queen. And I know she's also of Indian descent, but she identifies as a black woman. She's married to a white man, but she still identifies as a black woman, and I honor her just for being in that situation. When I think about her, I think about my grandmother, who was a sharecropper. I think about my mom and aunts and all of them who grew up sharecropping. I can't help but to celebrate Kamala Harris. And I'm appreciative to Joe Biden for putting her there. And he nominated the first black Supreme Court justice, black female, Ketanji Brown Jackson. The first in American history. That white man put her on the bench. And she's up there fighting for us. Thank you, Mr. Biden. Thank you, President Biden. Thank you. Thank you for putting her there. Someone who could be like Thurgood Marshall. Because when we lost Thurgood Marshall and he was replaced with Thomas, oh my God. Well, now we got somebody back who thinks like Thurgood Marshall, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and she's up there fighting for us. She's fighting those 6 conservatives. I've listened to almost every one of her oral arguments regarding civil rights. I've read all her dissents. That woman is fighting. She's up there no matter what they think. She is up there fighting and arguing for us. Thank you, Joe Biden, for that. First black DOD secretary, Department of Defense. I was in the military. That's pretty big. This man's over the military. That's pretty big, Lord Austin. Thank you, Joe Biden, for that. First black EPA secretary, who happens to also be a fella Aggie. And you may not understand how important the EPA is for us black people, but just ask yourself. Go to most cities, and where do you find all the dumps, all the environmentally dangerous, carcinogenic waste? It's in our community. And what Trump did was tried his best to weaken, not only weaken, but to destroy. He wanted to abolish the EPA. And it's the reason oftentimes African Americans have the highest incidence of this and of that because of the air we breathe in, because of the lead in our houses, because of the water that we drink. All that is to be regulated by the EPA. Joe Biden put a black man there. First black press secretary. The face of his administration with the media is a black woman. A um, a natural hair black woman, dark-skinned black woman, the face of his administration with the media, black woman. And it's not just symbolic, her being there, but she controls the narrative. One of the biggest issues with us is we don't control the narrative oftentimes. And that's why folks like Roland Martin controls the narrative with his big microphone. And it's why I'm grateful to have my 20,000 subscribers, because I'm able to get out here and counter some of this propaganda and misinformation they're putting out here to us and about us. First black chair of the Council of Economic Advisors. You may not see this woman, but she's in a high position. And it's so wonderful to have a black woman there, because hopefully she can address some of the economic inequalities that we deal with. He put black folks in key positions, progressive black folks in key positions. I'll talk about that in just a minute. And a record number of black female federal justices. And I cannot tell you how important that is. We're in court, my daughter and I, we're in federal court suing people. And let me tell you, it is so great sometimes just to see a black face. Someone that we know who was put on the bench by someone who's friendly to civil rights, so that every motion we file is not struck down. Everything we do to try to fight police brutality is not. It is so important, people, to have those. And I'm so okay. I'm gonna say this. They're black women. Black women go hard for civil rights. Go hard for the black community. The sisters don't waver. It's the brothers. It is black men who should be the caretakers of our community that oftentimes waver. And Trump knows that. And the blacks around him, they know that. Just put out some stuff, like, for example, the First Step Act. How many of you heard about that? Who gets all the credit for that? Trump. That was a Democrat policy. The Democrats had been working on that for years, and they had to convince Trump to sign that into law. Yet he gets the credit. And so you put that out there, you got folks put that out there. Well, look what Trump did for black folks with the First Step Act. And they don't know the facts. They're just repeating what somebody told them. They don't know that it was black and white Democrats who sponsored and fought for the First Step Act. Trump just signed it into law. Why did he sign it into law? So he could use it as a political stunt. So he could say, I done more for black men than Martin Luther King, Abraham Lincoln, everybody. Come on, folks. Yeah, I get a little fired up with this. Invested over $7 billion in HBCUs. Now, we all heard Trump gave HBCUs this. Listen, I've done the research. It is a lie. It's not true. Just do your own research. I got to get to some other stuff. He tried to reduce or eliminate federal student loans. Of course, the GOP that some black folks are trying to support blocked all that. They also blocked the signing of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, as well as the John Lewis voter rights bill. GOP is blocking all of that. Every bit of that, they're blocking that. When the Democrats ran or had the majority in the House, it was the Senate that didn't let that get through because white senators said, no way, we're not letting that happen. And then things flipped. Democrats had the Senate by 1 or 2 votes. But the GOP said, no, we're not supporting it. And blacks didn't have enough to overcome their filibuster. And by that time, the GOP was in control of the House. And he said Biden stands ready to sign both of those bills to deal with some very serious issues regarding policing in this country. For example, qualified immunity. A police officer is able to kill a black person oftentimes under very, very bad circumstances, and no, in most, the overwhelming majority of cases, there will be no civil penalty whatsoever because the family of that person files a lawsuit and they raise the issue of qualified immunity, the city, his attorneys, in the first 1 or 2 pleadings.
Okay, I found this on the web for his attorneys in the first 1 or 2 pleadings. Check it
Sorry
out.
about that. That's Siri. So they use qualified immunity to get rid of that. Siri's messing me up here. They filed qualified immunity pleadings to get rid of that lawsuit like that. And of course, most of them are not also held accountable in criminal court. Most of them don't even get indicted. So the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is critical. And they know it. And by the way, it was Tim Scott who didn't fight for it on the GOP side. He was the one who was shepherding it, in other words. The John Lewis Voters' Rights Bill is so important because it could restore the Voting Rights Act. It could restore the Voting Rights Act and prevent all of this voter suppression that we're seeing. But the GOP, the very party that some black men are seriously considering supporting. So why would you support, you a black man, why would you support a party that's trying to prevent a bill like the Justice and Policing Act to prevent the murder, the lynching of black men in the streets like George Floyd or Eric Garner? Why? Why? Tell me why. Explain it to me. Make it make sense. Why would you support the party that's trying to block the John Lewis voters' right when that bill would prevent these states from erecting all types of voter restriction laws? Why would you support a party that does that? Or why would you do anything to help a party do that? For example, by not voting. All right, Trump and those in his orbit are white supremacists and will promote a white supremacist agenda. I'm warning you, folks. I'm in these courtrooms. I see what they're doing. This is my space. I have to stay abreast of this stuff. And while Trump is out there trying to charm another black man or black person to vote for him or to get out there and start bigging him up and pumping him up. The folks with him, the folks that he bring into office with him, are the ones who are executing that white supremacist agenda. To a close. Let me just give you a few things here. So, Trump. Somebody asked me today, name me two things, two Trump policies that harm black folks. Okay, so here we go. All right, so he elected 3 white right-wing judges. Straight up, they've been all their lives fighting civil rights. He elected multiple lower federal court judges who are hostile to civil rights. Some of them couldn't even, during their confirmation hearing, wouldn't even say that Brown versus Board of Education is the law of the land or a legitimate case. None of them said it. In fact, there's one Trump judge. I did a video on him. Go watch the video. He says now the remaining section of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, blacks cannot use Section 2 to sue for voter discrimination. There's one judge, one Trump-appointed judge said that, wrote that in the opinion. Go look, find that video. I did that video about 3 months ago. I've been out here warning us for months. I mean, for years, actually. For years. For years. Go back and look at some of those older videos when I didn't have but what? 500 subscribers. These very important videos would get 50 views. But I hung in there. And eventually, YouTube said, okay, all right, we're going to show you a little love, and brought us together. And now we're going to raise an army up. We're going to raise up an army. Let's keep going. Trump's Department of Justice stopped the consent decrees. When Trump took office, he appointed Jeff Sessions, a white supremacist out of Alabama. And the Obama administration, see, I don't know if you all know this, so I have to tell you these things. So the Obama administration was fighting police brutality. I know a lot of you say he didn't do this, he didn't do that. He was doing a bunch of stuff. What he could do, in light of the whites in Congress who were blocking everything that he was trying to do. And they're doing the same thing to Joe Biden. But anyway, he was able to get consent decrees. That is, the Department of Justice will sue or, say to a police department, we've been investigating you. We find patterns and practices of discrimination. Your department, not just one or two of your officers, but your department is corrupt. And so we need you to enter this consent decree with us and start making some reforms. You're killing too many black people. You are injuring too many black people. You're using excessive force on too many black people. So those police departments, and there was a bunch of them. As soon as Trump took office, he appointed Jeff Sessions, and like the first week, Jeff Sessions got rid of all those consent decrees. And those police departments now were able to do exactly what they had been doing. So you asked me, sir, for a couple of things that Trump, I'm going to give them to you. I'm going to give them to you. What else? He encouraged, we heard him say this, we heard him encourage police to be even more violent. Do you remember that? You remember he was giving a speech in front of the police association, and he told them, stop putting your hand on people and helping them get into the car gently. Throw them in there. We know who he was talking about. What he said was so awful. Many police chiefs around the country said, they couldn't just co-sign that because they know the problem they were already having. Appointed Jeff Sessions, who encouraged the DOJ to charge people with the harshest charges and for minor offenses, which disproportionately affect black men. Betsy DeVos, you remember Trump appointed her over the ED, over the education department, and she revoked a bunch of policies that Obama promulgated to help black students. I know all about that. I wrote a book on that. We needed those policies to protect our young men and our young boys and girls in school. And by the way, let me say this. My book is written about black boys, but black girls too. They have a hard time in these public schools as well, but it's not quite as bad. It's not quite as bad. So immediately they got rid of all the policies to help young black men. Appointed Ben Carson, who promulgated new rules that harm blacks under the Fair Housing Act. Yes, Ben Carson promulgated rules. Him and Trump got together and promulgated, meaning they put forth rules that did harm to black folks instead of using the Fair Housing Act to protect black people. Ben Carson, a black man. Trump administration promoted voter suppression laws. He was all behind that. He was all behind getting those states to implement voter suppression laws. His Department of Justice, Jeff Sessions, cut staff specifically to the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, and the enforcement of the Civil Rights Act under Trump dropped considerably. In fact, what they started doing, they started using the Civil Rights Division to go after people on fake charges of reverse discrimination. They used the Justice Department to fight these fake reverse discrimination charges. Are you beginning to understand why I favor Biden? I got issues with Biden, don't misunderstand me. But, quite frankly, I'll take a slower, older Joe Biden over a slightly younger, white supremacist to the heart, Donald Trump, and all that he brings with him. I did another video on Project 2025. Find that video. I explain what the Heritage Foundation and other conservative organizations are planning if Trump wins office. And let me tell you, Trump has all these charges. They don't care about any of that. They could care less about that. They just want him in office. They don't care what happens to him afterwards because they're able to take the seats of power and do what I'm warning you that they will continue to do. And oftentimes, black men, these bad policies and practices and patterns that the GOP will implement will impact us the most. I'm not trying to scare you. It's just facts. Cut Obama-era ED policies to help students who borrowed money. Please overlook the typos. You remember Trump called Nazis and white supremacists very fine people? How can black people support a president who thinks Nazis and white supremacists are very fine people? Let me get a drink of water on that. Think about that a minute. maybe I'm missing something. How am I going to support a man who loves the KKK? How am I going to pull the lever for a man or stay home so he can win and he loves Nazis? You remember him saying, very fine people on both sides. When did white supremacy and white supremacists become very fine people? White supremacists have lynched thousands of blacks. White supremacists enslaved millions of blacks. When in our community, did white supremacists become, as Trump said, very fine people? I'm not understanding. I'm not understanding why any African-American person would be endeared to Trump. I don't get it. I don't get it. The man is the man and what he stands for. And do you all not understand that what we're dealing with here are white fear? We're dealing with white fear. We're dealing with whites who are afraid that blacks are taking over, immigrants are taking over. They're afraid that they're afraid they're losing the country. And that's what Trump is out there telling them. Take your country back. Take back your country. You can't be weak. Go to the Capitol, storm it, stop that election, because if you let Biden in here, you're going to lose your country. You know I'll fight for you, so go. Let's tell Mike Pence, stop the certification or hang him. I'm not making any of this up. You all know all this is going on. I'm just the one saying it. Called African-American athletes who were protesting systemic racism, called them SOBs. And angrily, you remember that? Called Africans or African nations, you know what he said. If you're thinking, well, that's African name, what they got to do with us? Really? If anybody's thinking that, what do you think Chinese Americans would feel if Trump said China was a blank hole? What do you think Japanese would feel? What do you think? But he's not going to do any of that because he knows what would happen. He might would do it though if Putin. So I'll take that back. Said all Haitians have AIDS. All Haitians, all of them, every one of them. That's textbook classic racism. I mean, flat out, total, absolute definition of racism. I'm almost done. Federal government sued Trump in the 70s for discriminating against black applicants. That's just a fact. I can show you the case. I have a copy of the case. No. I'm not. I've been fighting white supremacists. I'm not about to support one. blatant one. I'm sure we've all supported, white supremacists in the past in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I mean, we can't get away from them. We work for them oftentimes and so on. But one who does and says the stuff he does, who's so blatant about it. And let me say this, some of you have said things like, well, I like Trump because he says what's on his mind. And Biden, he doesn't say what's on his mind like Trump. Trump just let you know, he just call a spade a spade. So that's a reason to vote for him? So I don't understand the logic. So just that simple analysis, just that little bit of analysis is enough to vote for him? Really? Okay. I'm done. Bunches and bunches of comments. Let me take one or two. I don't want to hold you too long. Wow, there's so many. Sharon, you're right. Sharon says he also had the support of black church leaders. And I am a black church leader. And when I saw those men sitting in there paying homage to Trump, I cannot tell you how that just so disappointed me. And remember, one of them sat in there and said that Trump was the most pro-black president in our lifetime. Yeah, I mean, you all are saying so much stuff here. Oh, wow. So here's someone, Marcus, I don't know if I'm reading this right, but he says MLK said rivers of blood may have to flow before we get our freedom, but let it be our blood. This is why your brother, that is not why my brothers died. That's a lie. That is an absolute lie. It had nothing to do with MLK. How dare you? You don't know anything about my brothers. And it had nothing to do with MLK. Nothing. My brothers, unfortunately, were in the streets. Dr. King, if he said this, was simply saying he took a nonviolent approach. He took a nonviolent approach rather than picking up guns. That has nothing to do with the death of my brothers or any of those other young men out there who were out in the streets and got killed. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I'm very sorry, Mr. Corbett. I appreciate that. So many comments. Tammy Dorsey says Robert Byrd was I guess she's talking about Biden's mentor. Okay, so Robert Byrd, the late senator from West Virginia, had been a member of the KKK. I sat right here and I told you all early on that absolutely it was the Dixiecrats, the Democrats, who actually enslaved us. But I told you what happened. All that's verified. And the fact that Joe Biden had a relationship with Robert Byrd, who was once a KKK member, does not necessarily mean that Joe Biden is a white supremacist. Let me put it this way. If we got a white supremacist serving a black president and a white supremacist nominating the first black female vice president, and a white supremacist putting a progressive Thurgood Marshall style black female on the court and over the Department of Defense, I may shake that white supremacist's hand. I like that kind of white supremacist. Biden, there is, I'm seeing in the comments, there are some hate for Biden. And I, again, believe very strongly that that hate is misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda that's coming from the GOP, from Trump especially, and his campaign. Because they just need a few folk. And after I went through all of this, showing you the differences in these men, I don't get it. I don't get it. As okay. All right. She has a master. Someone says Kamala locked up a lot of black people and had a historically, I want to address that one. Kamala locked up a lot of black people and had a historically low rating before, during, and now. Let me talk about locking up a lot of black people. Unfortunately, crime occurs in our communities disproportionately, which also means that blacks are disproportionately victimized. And just because you're in a position, you're black and you're in a law enforcement position or the district attorney, so what does that mean? You turn your head? You got a job to do. You got to protect the community. And then you got people like me, who is the defense lawyer, who's going to make sure you do your job right. But I think we all want safe communities. I heard Kamala Harris say she was not going to apologize for trying to keep the community safe, and I don't blame her. I know when I go to bed at night, I want my community safe. Somebody says here, MAGA is all over this chat. I'm seeing that there are a lot of folks who probably, well, I spoke to them tonight. You know where we are. You know where I'm at. Thank you, Mark Weaver. Give them the history lesson they never had. I just scratched the surface. Biden, 1,000%. Somebody said Jim Crow Joe. See, a lot of folks just use those little sound bits. That's why I know this is more propaganda, misinformation than anything else, because little sound bits. Jim Crow Joe. And then when you ask for facts, just when people do that, just ask for facts. Where are your facts? Where are your facts? Give me your facts. Where are your facts? Facts, just facts. Not sound bites, not talking points. Where are your facts? And don't tell me he was a friend of Robert Byrd of KKK. Don't tell me that. You know, oftentimes politicians are having to work out deals. So I'm sure there were black people, there weren't no senators, but black politicians in the House, for example, who would work with Robert Byrd. So what does that make them? Come on. Illegal immigration. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. Thank you all for bringing that. Somebody here said something about illegal immigration. Okay, so I have not been happy with the way Joe Biden has handled the border. I'm going to be honest about that. I've been honest about everything, but I want to be blunt about that. I've not been happy with that. That is definitely a spot on his record, in my opinion. But let's tell the whole truth. Just when the U.S. Congress is in a position to enact immigration reform, and Biden has already said, you get it to my desk, I will sign it, I will agree to what you said, and we'll shut down the border. Just give me the authority. Who blocked it? There hasn't been immigration reform in this country for decades, and finally they were able to put something together. Biden ready to sign it. Who blocked it? Wasn't the Democrats. Who blocked it? It was the House, led by a Trump loyalist, Speaker Johnson. And it's reported that Trump said, don't do it, don't want Biden to get the credit. So let's just be fair about it. I've not been happy with the way he's handled the border. And in fact, I read before I took the air that His man on the border was impeached by the House. But who blocked the reform? All right, y'all, I can't get to all these comments. I appreciate you coming. And I would say that no one is going to shut me up. I'm built for this. I'm going to be doing this and doing it hard. I love my people. I see the threat that we face. So if you don't agree with my position, I've made it very clear and plain. This ain't the channel for you. This is not the channel for you. Right? I mean, this is not the channel. All you're gonna be is irritated with what I say. So, I mean, go where you all go and so on. All right, folks, I'm out. Thank you all very much for listening tonight. I have kept you for almost 2 hours. All right. The engagement was awesome. You all, I gave you a 5-point strategy in the video I made the other day. Don't forget that strategy. It's a simple strategy. But don't forget that strategy to fight what they're doing, what they're trying to do. Okay? I'm out. Thank you all. Peace.